Uh, so Megan, so in the context of any parents out there who are looking to have their daughters, for example, be more open-minded, exposed, and have no resistance at all to the idea of getting involved in technology and being involved in areas that traditionally perhaps have been more male-dominated, how do we do that?
Yeah, it's a big question. And I think you're right. I think what Sarah is doing is fantastic. That is definitely the way forward. There's also some other communities like Girls Who Code, who get young girls in, say, summer camps or seasonal camps or after school programs that's specifically about learning how to code and technology. But there's many ways to get women involved, and especially for femtech, it's starting from a young age, making sure that women's health is not as taboo. I know it's just very difficult because it's not just women's health. It can be girls and boys' health that kind of is covered by, let's say, less cheeky terms, or makes it easier on the parent, I suppose. But being able to talk about health from a young age and how bodies are developing is one aspect of it. It also it incites curiosity, which is really where interest is going to lie. Not even specifically for tech, but for medicine, for biology, for how everyone is developing. It is something that getting women from a young age, or girls from a young age, interested in tech is definitely progressing. And it's great to see these programs that we mentioned out there. But it's really also just acknowledging that there's sometimes different psychology behind it, and I'm no psych expert, so take it with a grain of salt. But there's some concerns that telling girls they could do anything, maybe they would have not thought otherwise. We're always enforcing that they could do anything they want, but maybe they always thought that until we implied they couldn't. So maybe playing with that a bit is interesting. One thing I'm finding in my generation of women is there's a common thread of we were raised by feminists who said we could do anything, and we took that as we have to do everything. So finding an asset or one thing to be quite skilled in, or a few things that we're interested in, is enough, and we have to find that balance. So hopefully the next generation will be a bit more balanced than we are at this stage.
It's all part of the journey, I think. I think it's an interesting point there. As parents, you do have aspirations for your kids, and whatever your, I guess, your own journey has kind of led to. You often hear parents, for example, that from the really early stages of their children's life, socially they're already announcing what they're going to be later in life. My daughter or son's going to be a doctor, is going to be a lawyer, or something like that, and they're putting these kind of projections onto the child. And I guess that's the right and privilege of a parent to an extent. The comment I was making earlier was more around, in business, we have these cultural norms that apparently we have to be really professional with each other when we engage in a business context. And so when you think about the digital meeting framework we have at the moment, when a child walks into a Zoom meeting, for example, there will be people who will judge that. They will see that as unprofessional. They will see that as, and it may be the observer, or it may actually be the person who's in the meeting, where, there's this preconceived context of what's professional, what's not professional. And my comment was more about, I don't have that. If Electra's part of my world, so if she walks into a meeting with me, that's part of the experience. And she will be exposed to it. That will make some kind of impression on her. And it's not necessarily because I've planted something or suggested something to her, but it's more that I haven't put a barrier there and I haven't put a boundary to say, you can't do this. It's more that she's growing in an environment where she is coming into contact with what it's like to have a parent who is working from home and who provides remote services, so to speak. That was more the comment there.
Yeah, and it is an interesting comment as well, because, you know, when we saw that news article, or
yeah, I think I know the one you mean,
2 years or something ago, and we thought it was the funniest thing when the toddler walked in, and then the mom, and then the other child. But you're right, that is the new norm, and I'm not sure even if the definition of professionalism before the world went into, you know, a complete work from home situation was really helpful to begin with. You know, historically, professionalism is created by definitions and structures that are very specific to men, where women navigating, you know, how to fit in a suit when it doesn't necessarily fit our bodies, or how to fit in a world where you're supposed to leave your, you know, your other life at home. It's supposed to be separate. When you are a mom, or you are going through a hard mental health time, or you have all these other facets, for, you know, regardless of gender, to be able to say, oh, this is the only part of me I'm bringing to work. You really aren't going to get the best out of people, because they have to be a different human when they pass through the, you know, the company doors. So if anything, the new standard that the global pandemic brought to us is that it at least lets us reevaluate what professionalism is. And, you know, I'm hoping that it lasts, because, you know, people want to see you bring your pets into the screen. They want to see what you're doing in the back. It allows them to know a little bit more about yourself, and not just kind of this robotic, you know, half of you that is presented just to get through the workday. And even just from a context of like managing emotions, like can't be good for us mentally. So
yeah, it's I 100% agree. It's part of the very reason I left the corporate sector many years ago, because they weren't interested in who I was. They were interested in what they wanted from. Yeah, so they didn't want the personality. They didn't want the. They just wanted the. It's interesting use of terms there. The robot, perhaps just do the job. And I can actually recall. One of my bosses at the time, who was a national partner in an advisory firm, female, and she would not even say hello outside of the workplace. It was only as soon as we were inside the office space that any engagement would happen. Otherwise, it was eyes straight, walk straight past the team. So it was a very awkward, and then there was this other kind of behavior where if you didn't wear the right colored suit, because we were in an advisory firm, so there were a lot of charcoal suits around. But, you know, while I was there, I kind of liked wearing some other colors. And this was frowned upon. This was not proper. In fact, I got cancelled by a senior partner in the backdrop of a story around power dressing. And I was just thinking about this, going, power dressing? You know, what's all this about? You know, and I guess that was the world that we all lived in. But I was a very productive team member, and I know I added a lot of value and a lot of economic value into that organization. But I left because that was soulless, and it didn't represent my definition of a fulfilled life. I often joke to, it was sort of a sarcastic joke to some of my close friends, that there was nobody in the senior leadership that had a suntan, and that was completely unappealing to me to try and aspire to be the same thing. So that led me down a different path.